Hi, welcome to our channel. Enjoy and leave your like to support our work and share with those you love. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. Thank you.
It's a series of difficulties, mainly in socialization, communication, and restricted and ritualistic behavior patterns. This baby, from a very young age, looks less, talks less, interacts less, plays less, interacts less, and when they do, play and interact.
That's the difficulty with socialization.
Exactly, they do, their own way. But we have a social behavior.
Which is expected.
Exactly. And this non-social behavior doesn't really meet the criteria of what society expects, which creates a series of difficulties for this little one.
But then you mentioned socialization, which would say is the main symptom. This difficulty he has in understanding these social rules, what it means to relate, whether it's as a child playing with other children, with their family, or interacting. In communication, what would the changes be?
If you keep this information in mind, the audience watching, you all have a great chance of being able to notice autism from a very young age. A child, from the moment they are born, communicates. She communicates through crying. She communicates through her gaze. Communication is not speech. Communication is how I see you, you see me, and that you understand me and I understand you.
I interact too.
Exactly. But have some milestones. I expect babies to babble, for example. 6 months. They do it earlier.
Even earlier, right?
2-3 months they start to...
He stays.
The babbling that alternates consonants and vowels, like mama and papa, happens at 6 to 7 months of age. At 9 months, these babblings are even stronger, and now we can even alternate the vowels and consonants. At 1 year old, this child has functional babbling, meaning mama is mommy, papa is daddy.
He knows he identifies that babbling as a person.
By 1 year and 3 months, at least 10 words. By 1 year and 6 months, between 20 to 50 words. By 2 years old. If you ask that child where their nose is, where their mouth is, where their ear is, where their eye is, 2 years old. 2 years. Where is daddy? At work. Where is mommy? In the kitchen. How old are you? 2. So that child, even if they say only a few words, between 50 to 200 words, already has a sense of facial communication. Forms small sentences with 2 to 3 words. At 3 years old, they have between 500 to 1,000 words. At 4 to 5 years old, this child has a sense of time, of what is fantasy and what is real. Depending on how fantasy is nurtured in that child's life, it's very hard for them to believe in Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny. It's very hard for her to believe in Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny. And then we have to pay attention. He goes along with the game, but he doesn't believe it. It depends on how creativity is nurtured in that child. And it's very interesting because these autistic individuals that almost everyone knows are at level 2 and level 3 who get diagnosed at this stage. Level 1 doesn't. In the DSM criteria, level 1 must speak. So people say, wow, but he talks. He's not autistic. The thing is, he talks less. He talks about his interests. He speaks in a ritualistic way with altered prosody, symbolic, pragmatic. So people say, oh, but he talks. He's not autistic. But he talks less. Talks about his interests. He speaks in a ritualistic way with prosody, symbolic, pragmatic, altered. But what happens is that level 2 and level 3 are receiving treatment. Level 1 is not. And now he arrives in 1st grade at school age with anxiety, depression, and other diagnoses like ADHD, among other things. And he didn't have the same opportunity to receive treatment. And then you ask him, how was your day? It was good. And how is your school? It's brief, right? Good. And your friends? What's the name of your best friend? Paul. So you notice he doesn't develop. No. Layers of depth in communication, right? So it's more or less that. So we have to be very careful. I say that I'm more afraid of level 1 support than of levels 2 and 3. Because you see, I'm the father of a level 3. For 6 years, 5 years, my son received treatment. So I gradually learned what autism is until I reached a point where I have a good understanding of autism. Even if I weren't a doctor, I would have that understanding because I lived the process, I lived the treatment, I lived through it all. Now imagine this mother or father whose child always talked less, always played, but played in their own way. He had his rigid stereotyped behaviors. Let's take a shower, struggle to take a shower. Let's get out of the shower, a struggle to get out of the shower. Let's put on the outfit. The child has a meltdown because it's not the color of their clothes. Put on the shoes, always wanting the same shoes and everything. And this child didn't receive the diagnosis. And then time goes by. And now at 6 years old, a diagnosis falls into your lap. But unlike level 2 and level 3, to treat these children who don't make eye contact, who don't focus, there are specific therapies. Working with a level 1 autistic person is difficult because it's small things. It happen all day long. And then you can even give examples to people. What do you mean? Just taking a small example, for instance. We have social labels, so I can't speak louder than I should because it would get uncomfortable. But when do I speak? The whole day. So all day long someone would have to model this boy's conversation. But who's going to model a therapist all day long for a functional child? I'll give an example of how my son has this difficulty. It's very complex to teach pronouns, to teach Mr. and Mrs. So, son, of course. These are the rules of my house, right? Dad is Mr., Mom is Mrs., Grandpa and Grandma are Mr. and Mrs., Anna is Mrs., Alex is Mr. I've been teaching him this for a year. It's not working. Now, are you going to have a therapist work on this once a week for 15, 20, 30 minutes? Won't work.
30 minutes is much harder, right?
So that's why parents of level 2 and level 3 children mature over time, while parents of level 1 do not. But level 1 has more suicidal ideation. At least 25% die more.
Are you perhaps talking about a greater awareness?
No, it's just that.
And a greater awareness of their difficulties.
I think it's mainly things. I'm sure, right? The autistic person at level 1 suffers more. They suffer more because they die more. They have more depression. They have more anxiety. All of this, called mental illnesses. An autistic person has a higher chance of developing schizophrenia, among many other things. But what happens? The level 1 autistic person, especially with support, at 7 or 8 years old, has difficulties. I'm going to take some. He doesn't play the way he should. He doesn't socialize the way he should. He can't engage the way he should. What is the natural tendency? Exclusion.
Being excluded from the group.
Feeling of not belonging. And a lot of bullying because a lot. I had an 8-year-old boy who was a level 1 autistic. And I felt the mother always asked for school support. And the school didn't provide support. It's a school in the countryside. The mother couldn't get treatment. And that child didn't play ball. That child couldn't play with the other kids. And he was a child with food selectivity. And he only ate cheese bread during snack time. And when it was time to eat the cheese bread, the boys who had already picked on him for so many other things now started picking on him because he ate the crust of the cheese bread. For some people who don't understand, an autistic person sometimes has food selectivity, where they only eat things that are light, dry, and crunchy. That's what happened at home. Other mushy foods, other foods of different colors. So there are some patterns.
And rigid, very rigid about food.
And it's not Alice. Then I'll give an example of the cockroach that people will understand. If you let me, I'll talk for 4 hours straight. Let's go here. And then this boy started to get teased, to be bullied by his classmates. He stopped eating the cheese bread.
Because he would dissect the cheese bread, right? I had a patient who would take the French bread and remove all the inside. Then he would start eating just the crunchy parts.
It may just seem like a cheese bread, but that is literally all he would eat.
Exactly.
And you can imagine what that's like for the mother, for that child, and he doesn't want to go to school anymore. So these examples of autistic individuals, I have tons of people who suffer a lot. Exactly.
Because there's an expectation of normality from them, and with level 2 and level 3, you see that you have much more empathy.
Even the teachers.
Because the teachers come in, right?
And they look and say, no, look at your classmate. Let's be patient because he has a little problem or he doesn't have the same ease that we do.
Exactly.
Type 1. If he's not warned, this is history.
That's what's really the hardest, right, Tiago? And then it's suffering for him.
Did you like the video? Then follow, like, and share for more content.